Hi all, welcome to week 6. Just wanted to go over, as always, a little bit from last week, some info for this week, and then our quiz questions. So last week we talked about human resources, and as I'd mentioned in last week's Ed Puzzle, this is an area that a lot of students tend to gravitate toward, especially for things like internship experiences, etc. Kind of gives you a taste of a lot of different areas of a hospital facility or other healthcare organization, just because the human resources folks are involved in so many aspects of the operation, from recruiting to working with departments to analyze their needs to compliance with relation to various different laws, etc. So it's a good place to kind of get your feet wet in some instances if you have an interest in that area. So keep that in mind if you are an HSA major and will be going on to do an internship. It's always a good place to, if you have that interest, a good place to get started. So obviously we had our discussion about employee retention and healthcare worker burnout, etc. And just, this question I've had on here for the last couple of times I've taught this class, even prior to the COVID pandemic. So especially with the pandemic making things a little more difficult on healthcare workers, obviously. So interesting discussion there. We had a group case study assignment. Hopefully everybody has completed their self and peer assessment. I saw a few were missing, but those could be students that didn't participate. So if that's the case, no worries. And thanks to everyone that did get that submitted along with the group assignment. And then our quiz, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So let's hop over to week 6. Week 6, we're going to talk about quality and process improvement and also operations. So if you are in an HSA major, you'll get a lot of, our program tends to be quite heavy in the quality and process improvement area, mainly due to Dr. Hampe and Dr. Frendak, who are the two full-time faculty members. They are both former patient safety officers and very well-versed in quality and process improvement. So if you find that you like that area, that's also a great area to dig into for an internship, and you have a lot of expertise right there in the HSA department at RMU with folks that worked hands-on in facilities in those areas. So they can always help you out with questions or whatnot. And there is obviously a full quality class in the program as well. So that's something that you can look forward to taking in the future. So we're going to talk basically about quality improvement. It's probably an area, unless you've worked in corporate America or in a facility or organization of a decent size, you probably haven't run into a lot of quality improvement activities. So we'll talk about that, what it is, the basis of that. But then also talk about complex organizational decisions. And this relates somewhat to process improvement, but probably more to the operations side. And when you think about a healthcare organization, like I talked about human resources touching so many different areas of the organization, obviously operations does as well, but even like I say here in the discussion question, if you decide to modify some physical space or alter some schedules, there are so many people involved in each aspect of that. It can really impact quality, cost, efficiency, make things more difficult for patients, which is difficult. So, there's so much complexity in a healthcare organization that any one moving piece of that, if there's a change, it's going to impact other pieces. So, how can we deal with this? What are the implications, etc.? So that's what our discussion will be about. We also have a written assignment this week, short paper, 2 to 4 pages. Please remember to do your papers in APA format. I don't require an abstract. It's actually no longer required for student papers. It's only required if faculty tell you it's required. So you may run into, say, for your undergraduate thesis, they'll want an abstract, but then we're talking about a much more sizable paper than this short paper. So APA format, meaning title page, the body of the paper itself, and then a separate reference page, and then references cited in text in APA format as well. We are on APA 7th edition, so make sure that you're referencing that, and that's what was talked about at the beginning of the term as well in week 1. So we're going to talk about process improvement methods. I will warn you, I think I've had with this particular assignment, I've had issues in the past where students just take the time to talk about all the different methods that the textbook talks about. That's not what I'm looking for here. What I want you to do is obviously read your assignment for the week and then think about these different areas and dig into one of them. So there's, obviously some that I've listed here: CQI, TQM, Six Sigma, Lean, but there are others as well. Find one and dig into it, do some research on that, and try and share some additional info other than what's found in the textbook with the class, or with me actually. But share that info so that so that you can dig into something a little bit in a little more detail. Perhaps you might see a case study. So you might in your research, maybe you're looking at Six Sigma. In your research, you find that Hospital XYZ did a Six Sigma project in their operating room, and it decreased cost, increased efficiency by this percent, that percent, etc. So feel free to share information in that regard, but make sure you're, again, citing and referencing everything properly. So that's our written assignment this week. I will also remind, this is a Turnitin assignment. You know that because of this little funny blue square with a red thing around it. And with Turnitin assignments, make sure that you're going through the entire process to submit it, meaning that you'll upload the file as it tells you to, and it'll process for a minute, and then you'll have to hit submit again. It's to confirm your submission. So there's a 2-part process. I almost always have at least one student that it looks like they didn't do their work for the week, but they in fact did. It just wasn't submitted properly. So please make sure that you're doing that. And then obviously we have our quiz and our ed puzzle. So let's flip over here to the quiz questions quickly. First one: major federal laws affecting human resources primarily address. So obviously, again, our discussion was in human resources, and laws that affect that area address all of these things. So protections for applicants and rights of employees, obviously, safety of the workplace, like laws related to OSHA, and right to know laws, etc. Accommodations for people with disabilities, that's the American with Disabilities Act. And all 3 of those are very important in the human resources realm. A large facility will likely have a compliance officer as well, but the human resources folks really do get mostly involved in these areas with regard to making sure that the organization is compliant. Next one, job analysis is necessary to, and the answer that was most frequently answered, if you didn't get it right, was D. And so job analysis is really about examining a job, a specific job, to make sure that the job is defined properly for purposes of a job description. So that's really what job analysis is about. What happens with jobs, for anyone that's worked in an organization where you had a specific job description, oftentimes jobs will morph over time. So for example, when I first came to work at RMU, my tasks, my job description described that I taught classes and that I had some responsibility for service to the department, service to the university, service to the community, as well as scholarship. So continued professional development, research, those types of things, and then obviously teaching. Then over time, we had some activity related to accreditation. Wasn't represented in my job description, but I did spend a good amount of time on that. So then, next time around, and it's a process at RMU, it's after your first 3 years, your job is kind of examined again. And in that next go around, they added those types of things to my job officially. So it was something that I was had goals set on, was assessed against, those types of things. So that's really a job analysis, looking at the job. It doesn't dig into really evaluating employee performance. That's performance appraisals. But what is important for an accurate employee performance review is that you've done a job analysis up front, so that the job description actually describes what's going on in that patient, or in that employee's job day to day. And then determining projected staffing needs. That's just a task from within human resources. But job analysis is exactly what it sounds like: analyzing a job and then using that to define what is that job. The highest forecast percentage of growth in health occupations employment by 2022 is for which of the following occupations? And of the items noted there, physician assistants were noted as having the highest percentage of growth, particularly related to their role in the replacement of, say, a primary care physician, etc. So a physician assistant, or a PA, operates in a very independent way in many states. In some states, it's not quite as independent. Pennsylvania is actually a state where they are quite independent. And they work in conjunction with a physician, but the physician assistant can really manage their own patients, etc. So that was really a field that grew quite quickly, very similar to nurse practitioners, except nurse practitioners, the rate of growth wasn't quite as high. A physician assistant, you can go. A lot of places have a program where it's a bachelor's and a master's 5-year program. So you're able to do both your bachelor's and then your master's degree related to the physician assistant role. You can do your residency time and then take your boards. So it's kind of a quicker process than it would be for, a minimum for a nurse practitioner is going to be 6 years of education, potentially 7 or 8 if you're looking to get a doctor of nursing practice, or the DNP degree. So it's a longer time frame, more outlay of dollars, and therefore, kind of that higher percentage growth area was in physician assistantship. What I will say is that our answer D, which wasn't correct, but they say by 2029, so between 2019 and 2029, the role of medical and health services managers is expected to increase by 37%. So for those of you that are in the health administration program, that's good for you. And the reason for that is the retirement by the kind of the baby boom generation. Those folks will be retiring or moving on to less strenuous jobs like teaching, and then the younger generations, Generation X, which is where I fall, but also the millennial and the Gen Z folks will be moving on to fill these roles. So 37%, that's a pretty big percentage. They say in that same time frame, 2019 to 2029. Business managers in general, so think corporate America, business type stuff, the growth rate is only 4%. So a massive difference in the healthcare setting. Human resources staff use of third-party websites can assist in. So our answer here was recruitment. So you think about a third-party website. This is like Monster for recruitment, Monster.com, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all these different sites that are out there for recruitment. We wouldn't necessarily use third-party websites to help retain employees or to do performance appraisals. We might use software products to do performance appraisals, etc. And then recruitment and retention. Retention wouldn't really be part of this process, but recruitment on its own, there's definitely a good number of different third-party websites out there. LinkedIn is another one that has job postings, specific areas like, for example, if you are a medical group manager, so a physician administrator over a physician office, etc. You might be able to go out to the Medical Group Management Association website, and they'll have a job posting board. So HR can go and post jobs there to get folks involved in those positions. So websites really do help us out with recruitment, but not necessarily those other areas. And that's it. So that's all I've got for this week. Again, we've got our paper. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to get in touch. I will be working on getting your case studies and everything graded here over the next couple of days. And if you have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the classroom. Thanks.